In early 2026, the world's eyes locked onto Iran as Operation Epic Fury erupted, and the media focused entirely on missiles, exploding tankers, and surging oil prices. By now, everyone knows the scale of the US response. Washington moved its crown jewels, rerouting aircraft carriers to the Middle East and pulling critical assets, intelligence bandwidth, and political focus right out of the Pacific. But while America was looking completely west, it leaves one chilling question. What was happening in the Pacific? China saw an opening. While American tomahawks were falling on Iran, Beijing didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they deployed an entirely different kind of weapon. Cold, silent satellite imagery captured the sequence in real time. First, the swarms arrived. 22 massive cutter suction dredgers cutting through the water towards Antelope Reef. Then, the underwater coral reef completely disappeared, buried under millions of tons of sand and concrete. Suddenly, new land emerged from the open ocean. Within weeks, 50 gray-roofed structures rapidly materialized from the sand. Then came the heavy-duty 9,000-foot runway built for long-range bombers, immediately followed by integrated missile batteries and radar domes. By the time anyone felt the need to look, the map had already changed. Which forces the next question. Why does one artificial island matter so much? To understand the scale of what's happening, you have to discard everything you think you know about South China Sea territorial disputes. Make no mistake, this was never about land. This isn't about nationalism, and it isn't even primarily about building military bases. This is entirely about controlling the sea. By turning submerged, legally ownerless reefs into permanent military fortresses, Beijing has effectively built unsinkable aircraft carriers right alongside the world's most critical economic waterway. This isn't a land grab. It's a deliberate strategy to gain leverage over the world's busiest trade route. This is Conflict Vector, where we reveal the hidden decisions shaping tomorrow's conflicts. Welcome to the $3 trillion chokehold. By expanding this network, adding Antelope Reef to the heavily fortified Big Three of Fiery Cross, Subi, and Mischief, China has established an inescapable web of leverage over 1/3 of all global trade. To realize exactly what China is building here, you only have to look back at the very conflict that distracted us. Look at Iran. For decades, Iran has held a massive geopolitical gun to the head of the global economy because it sits next to the Strait of Hormuz. By threatening to close that single narrow waterway, which carries roughly 20% of the daily global oil supply, Iran managed to trigger the largest oil supply disruption in history, sending Brent crude surging past $120 a barrel and freezing Western decision-making. Beijing watched that play out, and they applied the exact same equation on a much grander scale. If controlling 20% of the world's daily oil supply gives Iran the power to destabilize the West, imagine the power China secures by controlling the South China Sea, a corridor that carries a full third of all global trade by total value. The mechanism of control is pure strategy. By placing military installations with heavy runways, advanced surveillance arrays, and permanent missile batteries along the corridor, China changes the mathematical risk for every commercial vessel. The continuous military and Coast Guard presence creates immense pressure. If a crisis escalates, shipping risk skyrockets. Insurance costs become completely prohibitive, and major maritime companies are forced to comply or look elsewhere. Because vital energy routes supplying Japan and South Korea, alongside massive global manufacturing supply chains, funnel directly through this narrow gauntlet, the world simply cannot choose to ignore it. China has built the ultimate geographic veto power. They're building a version of the Strait of Hormuz, but for the entire global economy. But here's what makes this strategy so powerful. China doesn't need to shut the South China Sea to change the global economy. The possibility alone changes behavior. Shipping companies begin calculating risk. Insurance premiums climb. Governments start worrying about supply chains. Manufacturers begin asking whether critical components will arrive on time. Every additional layer of uncertainty raises the cost of doing business before a single missile is ever fired. That's the real power of controlling a maritime choke point. It's not just about stopping ships. It's about making the entire world factor your military presence into every economic decision it makes. If this geographic cage is so dangerous, it leaves an obvious question. Why did everyone allow this to happen? The answer is gray zone warfare, China operates entirely below the threshold of conventional military conflict. They didn't send an invasion fleet, they sent 22 dredgers. You cannot justify starting World War III over a pile of sand, and Beijing knows it. That is exactly how the strategy works. Every individual move looks too small to justify a military response. One dredger isn't worth a war. One artificial island isn't worth a war. One new radar station isn't worth a war. But add those small moves together over months and years, and the strategic map quietly changes. By the time the world realizes what's happened, reversing it has become far more dangerous than allowing it to continue. The strategy isn't about winning dramatic cinematic battles. The strategy is about quietly creating physical facts on the ground, week by week, until reversing them becomes too expensive, too dangerous, and too legally convoluted for the West to contest. They win by altering reality, while the rest of the world calculates the cost of pushback. That's why this approach has been so difficult to counter. Democracies are often built to respond to obvious crises. Gray zone warfare is designed to avoid creating one. Every month, construction continues. These outposts become more heavily fortified, more operational, and more difficult to challenge. The longer the world waits, the higher the cost of reversing that new reality becomes. This new geography is exactly why the strategic calculus around Taiwan has fundamentally changed. These islands are not a direct amphibious invasion plan aimed at the Taiwanese coast. They're the permanent infrastructure that makes future military pressure and encirclement much more credible. The South China Sea isn't separate from the Taiwan question. It's one of the roads leading to it. Every new runway, radar station, and missile battery extends China's ability to monitor, protect, and contest the waters an allied force would have to cross during a future crisis. That means these islands aren't just changing today's map. They're shaping tomorrow's military options. These forward outposts give the People's Liberation Army advanced radar eyes and anti-ship missile baselines far south of Taiwan. If Washington attempts a naval response to defend the island, Allied fleets are forced to operate inside a heavily fortified, multi-directional blockade envelope before they even reach the Taiwan Strait. China has effectively nightmare-proofed its southern flank. Which brings us to the ultimate strategic dilemma. The United States is trying to push back, deploying troops for exercises and gaining access to local bases in the Philippines. But the Indo-Pacific military presence is fundamentally overstretched, forced to manage a major shift in the global balance of power while global attention remains divided. Tearing down a concrete fortress packed with surface-to-air missiles isn't a matter of diplomatic negotiation or freedom of navigation exercises. It's an act of total war. The real question is no longer whether China can build these islands. That question has already been answered. The real question is whether anyone can remove them without starting World War III.